If you've been a part of the Fortnite community now for a while, you are aware that this is one of the most powerful, positive communities out there. But if you have been around the game recently, those words probably sound a bit foreign. Because the truth is, Fortnite is in one of the worst states it has been in since its inception. And this whole situation came to a head during the FNCS Invitationals that just happened.
Oh no.
I'm dead. I died. Okay.
Is there a refarm you can get to?
You're dancing on me. I'm landing on him next game.
That was Clix.
A simple snipe or a simple dance, something that has happened millions of times in this game, has created a scenario where the entire Fortnite community feels they need to be a part of the conversation and where people are leaving this game in droves. So how did we get to this point? Well, there are, in my opinion, 4 distinct phases of competitive Fortnite. And if we want to understand how we got here, we need to first look back at where we started. So in the beginning of the Fortnite scene, we have the initial pro community. If you can think back, this was the original Fortnite Fridays created by Keemstar. This was when the majority of the pros, the people we considered the pros in this game, it was largely just content creators and people from previous games. And at that time, building and editing, it was slow, but it was focused on creating cover. It was not necessarily the insane world of building and editing that we see today. The competitive scene was at first unofficial. There was really nothing. There was just this weekly Friday tournament put on by a third party, and then eventually Epic decided to create their own scene, but it was still underdeveloped. And things like having accurate aim and good positioning mattered just as much as building and editing mechanics. In fact, there were many pros who made their name at the time on just the ability to get good positioning, to reposition well, and to aim well. Becoming a pro back then required an org of some kind. It required you to have some form of leverage to get into the actual tournaments because they were not open qualifiers the way that they are now. Then we have phase 2, and I'm calling this PreWorld Cup. Now, during the PreWorld Cup, the pro scene really started to solidify. The initial group of content creator pros dwindled as the split between content creators and pros started to become a thing. And the release of creative happened during this time. It allowed players to practice building and editing mechanics without anyone knowing, as well as the start of open qualifiers for official Epic tournaments. This, plus the release of creative, allowed people to develop their mechanics and become mechanically cracked without anyone knowing that they exist. And then, thanks to the open qualifiers, they had an actual opportunity to make it into the final tournament and win actual money. Building and editing took a massive focus over aim and positioning during this time. Getting all the way up to the height maximum inside of a game happened pretty regularly. We also had bounce pads during this time, so we could always disengage if things got too high. Now, during this time, we also saw the rise of some of the great controller players like Innocence, like Aiden, like Unknown, like Wolfies, like Sway. Now, during this time, one really key move that played the largest role in creating the world of Fortnite that we operate in today was the reduction of the age requirement for competitive. The age requirement went from 16 to 13, and what this ended up doing was a skill gap that was already rising. This age reduction opened the floodgates. It allowed younger players who had already been playing the game for 2 years, who had already put in thousands of hours inside creative, people who were mechanically skilled in ways we did not even know was possible at the time, were finally allowed to compete. They were allowed to enter the pro pool. Now, what this naturally did was it put these players against the existing pros, these unknown kids who had spent thousands and thousands of hours every waking moment of every single day during summer vacation, during winter break, even when they were at school on their mobile phones. The skill gap jumped dramatically as some of these younger players started to place higher and higher, as some of them started to dominate, as some of them started to become the new champions. In addition to this, the increase in prize pools made it so that people spent more time on their mechanics. They saw the opportunity to get to the World Cup and walk away a millionaire. And that kind of motivation, that kind of drive, that kind of incentive enables people to put even more time into practicing their mechanics. Now we get to the aftermath of the World Cup.
Your Fortnite World Champion, Booyah!
Many of the qualifiers who made it to the World Cup were on the younger end. I believe the average age was 15, which means the average age of players at the World Cup was actually younger than the previous minimum requirement to participate in tournaments. In addition to that, many of the older players, the pros from the previous era of Fortnite, did not perform as well as we all expected them to. This put a spotlight on a large group of younger players who had previously not had any audience or any attention around them. So we have a massive audience shifting from some of the older players towards younger players. This also means younger audiences. And so we have a massive group of younger players with a massive group of young audiences starting to have a massive effect on the state of the community. And so you have this group of very young players who are reacting to the state of the game, reacting to things that Epic has done, reacting to each other, maybe engaging with drama with each other, because that is what young teenagers do. We see this play out in middle school and high schools all across the country. So any negative comment, any slightly negative attitude is being echoed across the entire community. During this time, because these younger players were dominating the pro scene and dominating the scene of breakout players, the skill gap continued to rise. It got to a point where Epic themselves decided they needed to do something. And this is why we saw Epic spend 2 to 3 seasons focused on reducing the skill gap by implementing terrible game items like the Brute, for example, or attempting to nerf turbo building or any other number of things that they tried. Which brings us to the current state of things, the post-World Cup situation that we find ourselves in. These young players have younger audiences. These audiences tend to play into the slightest impression of drama between players, and since they have a direct connection to speak with their preferred player via Twitch chat or YouTube chat or Twitter or whatever platform they choose, they can take something that should be a small altercation, a small bit of drama between two people. They take that, the audiences, and they make it significantly bigger. They egg on both sides. They go into each other's chat and they try to make this drama into something much larger than it actually needs to be. And then because the scene is largely dominated by younger players having drama with each other, less and less older players or older audiences ever want to enter it. And then the majority of older players currently look for the next game. And so we find ourselves in this moment between Clix and Unknown. Now I know by the time this video has published, Unknown has issued an apology. I believe the issue is largely squashed, but we do need to talk about why this blew up in the first place, to the point where people like Coach Timmy, Calculator, Ops, and any number of other players felt they needed to weigh in. Well, the answer is because it represents everything negative in the current state of Fortnite. When players purposefully grief each other during money tournaments with no regard for the actual competition they are engaged in, it shows that Fortnite is just a place where teenagers engage in drama with Fortnite in the background. It stops being about the video game, the tournament, or anything else and starts becoming a reality show about teenagers who play the same game. And while we as the Fortnite community only have ourselves to blame, after all, we are the audience members. We are the ones watching the drama unfold and rooting for particular sides. We are the ones who are giving these younger players the platforms that they have. We also are the ones with the power to change it and make this scene into something worth being a part of. There have been a lot of people leaving Fortnite recently, and while there are many reasons for this, the one thing we can control is whether or not this game is viewed as a positive platform that empowers our community to break out if they are willing to work for it, or a place of drama, toxicity, and disappointment. The choice is ours. The state of Fortnite right now, unfortunately, is inherently negative, but it does not have to stay that way. If you like this video, be sure to drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the state of Fortnite right now. What do you think led to this moment and any number of future moments that will surely pop up? How do you feel about the game right now? Drop a comment down below. Be sure to leave a thumbs up, and before you leave, definitely click subscribe and turn on notifications. My name is Spider. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to check out the other videos on our channel, and I'll talk to you in the next one.